Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. Our show brought to you each and every week by Buffalo Rock, bottlers of fine Pepsi products tonight, Rodney. Ice cold Diet Pepsi. Let's go ahead and pop that top. And that sound of, oh, that sounds so good. Tastes even better. A little thirsty tonight.
You were working out hard today. I was at the Y, you were in there, you were blowing it out.
Yeah.
And now you got this diet drink.
That's right. I'm trying, man. Almost overdid it today a little bit.
You did good.
Got a little overheated, but hey, we're here on Tider Insider TV, Rodney. You know some guys that are going to look to overdo it as always. Alabama football, they push themselves hard. Just 3 days away from spring practice. Now, last week, we took an in-depth look at the offensive side of the ball. So, obviously, Rodney, that means that tonight we are going to look at the defense. Now, let's start by talking about some guys that are going to be missing up front. Brandon Ivory, a senior. Xavier Dixon. Of course, Trey DePriest, the outstanding linebacker in the secondary. Seniors, Jarrett Williams and Nick Perry, but the big loss, of course, in the secondary is Landon Collins. Let's start with, before we talk about some strengths, just the negative of losing guys that have a ton of experience like that.
Well, I mean, it's obviously, especially in the secondary, Gary, I think it's really crucial. Look at that safety spot. I mean, a couple of years ago, you had Landon Collins, you had Vinny Sinceri, you had Clinton Dix, three guys that, are going to be, two of them already in the NFL, that Collins will be in the NFL. So you've lost a lot of talent, a lot of experience, even guys like Nick Perry now gone, who's been a guy that's been around for a long time. So, you're really starting, I don't want to say from scratch, but you certainly don't have a lot of experience. You've got Jabril Washington back there who had some experience last year. Geno Smith's certainly been around for a while. Maurice Smith played some at the star position. Perhaps he gets a look at safety in the spring. We'll see exactly how they line up. I think the two freshmen that are in early, Deontay Thompson and Ronnie Harrison, certainly have a lot of potential. It's good that they're here early because it allows them an opportunity to kind of get their feet wet as you head into fall camp.
And you got a new secondary coach. And man, is he highly touted. The former NFL defensive coordinator, Mel Tucker of the Jags, and latest of the Chicago Bears. So this is a guy with a lot of experience. So we'll probably see a few changes in the secondary in terms of what they're trying to do back there.
Well, and the good thing too is that Mel Tucker and Nick Saban certainly are on the same page. They've had a long-time relationship. They've coached many years ago and many years together. They were at LSU together, Michigan State together. So there's certainly two guys that are very familiar with each other. So that's very key.
At linebacker, you lose DePriest, but you've got Reggie Ragland back, and he's an All-American candidate. I think we're all waiting for Reuben Foster. We know how hard he can hit. Maybe this will be the year that he breaks out on defense. And you got some other guys there on the inside looking for playing time, and on the outside, you got almost an embarrassment of riches in terms of talent at outside linebacker.
Yeah, when you look at some of those athletic guys, and you talk about some of the inside guys, though, Gary, it's certainly a key position. I mean, Reggie Ragland went down in that game against Ohio State, certainly hurt, but Sean Dion Hamilton is a guy that, young sophomore that's got a lot of potential. Keith Holcomb, the freshman from here in Tuscaloosa, is another guy to really keep an eye on. You mentioned Reuben Foster's this year that Reuben steps up and becomes the player that everyone expected him to be. And you talk about those outside guys, Rashawn Evans, Tim Williams, a couple of young guys, tremendously gifted pass rush type guys. Denzel Duvall's back. So Dylan Lee's also back, so they've got some experience there. And Dylan does play also inside in some packages, but they do have a lot of talent, no question about that.
And real quickly on the interior defensive line, I mean, you've got Jaron Reed coming back, Ashawn Robinson coming back, Taylor is added into the mix from junior college, a lot of other guys that have been waiting their time. This is going to be a area that's deep and also has a lot of big physical football players available.
Yeah, I think when you talk about that interior, you talk about Jaron Reed and Ashawn Robinson, perhaps the two best interior defensive linemen in the country on one team. And I think Jonathan Taylor, the incoming junior college player who is here this spring, going to go through spring practice, I think he has a chance to really be a dominant player at that nose position, Gary, and inside. And, Josh Frazier's a young guy that I really think has a lot of potential there. Dalvin Tomlinson's a guy that's kind of moved around, and he's done an outstanding job too. So, you know, they've got a lot of talent. Then on the outside, Jonathan Allen, DJ Petway, and
as you mentioned, Deshaun Hand.
Deshaun Hand's a guy that played as a true freshman last year, showed some flashes, and, you know, will continue to kind of get better and better as time goes on. I think he'll get more PT this year.
Those guys, some of them have made their mark at the college level. Some of them are looking to make their mark at the college level. But for others, it's time to move on to the next level, hopefully. Alabama will hold its pro day tomorrow, then spring ball, of course, will start on Friday. Let's talk, though, about some guys that are no longer worried about spring practice at Alabama. They're getting ready to try to sign contracts in the National Football League, Rodney, and you've got some guys that are very, very good that'll be working out tomorrow. Of course, you've got Cooper, and, you know, he's going to lead the way. And also, we've got A.J. McCarron, a former Crimson Tide quarterback that threw out the first pitch on Friday night in Mobile before the Tides game against Lipscomb. The former All-State baseball player discussed his feelings on the suggestion that there's a quarterback controversy brewing in Cincinnati.
I never want any controversy. I wanted to, you know, us both to go out and compete and try to make each other better. And when the season comes around, it's my job to support him and try to help him in whatever way I can. So, you know, good comments from Coach are great, but Andy's still the starter, and you know, I'm working my way to hopefully get there one day.
Bengals coach Marvin Lewis made some headlines when he praised how well McCarron is coming along in the Bengals offense. We mentioned Alabama Pro Day coming up. There's some other Alabama players already in the NFL, and those guys are looking to get big contracts either with their old teams or move on to some new teams. Free agency is beginning. Mark Ingram will be staying in New Orleans, and that did not like it would be the case just a few months ago, but he signs a 4-year deal worth $16 million with the Saints. Signed it on, or agreed to it on Saturday. He's coming off career highs in rushing yards and touchdowns, and looks like he will finally get an opportunity to be the man in the Big Easy. Kareem Jackson also getting paid big. The cornerback would have been a hot commodity in the free agent market. I know that because the Texans signed him to a 4-year, $34 million deal with $20 million in guaranteed money. Jackson has 10 career interceptions for the Texans and is happy to be staying in Houston. Now, here are some other former Alabama players who are on the free agent market. Again, Ingram, Jackson signing with their new teams. Javier Arenas with the Falcons looking to move on. James Carpenter is going to ink a deal with the Jets, leaving the Seahawks. He's going to make big money as an interior offensive lineman, a guard. So, you know, he did really well the last couple of years on a good team. He's going to get paid. Terrence Cody's status is up in the air, obviously. Brandon Dedrick, a veteran player, will be interesting to see if he can catch on with the team. Mike Johnson's been hurt a lot with the Falcons. And Rolando McClain, you know, came back big, runner-up for the Comeback Player of the Year with the Cowboys, but he's got a suspension on tap for substance abuse. Also, of course, this issue with his home being burned down here in Tuscaloosa. So we don't know what's going to happen with Rolando McClain, although Jerry Jones is on the record as saying he'd like to keep him in Dallas because he was a productive football player. All right, much more to come on TITV, including a big-time history-making weekend for Crimson Tide softball. We'll tell you about that. And it was a great way to head to the postseason. We'll recap Alabama's big road win over Texas A&M and preview the upcoming SEC tournament game against Florida. And, of course, coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information there on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV. Go ahead and give us a call, send us an email, or reach out to us on social media. We'll be right back with a show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV will return after this. Well, senior Levi Randolph and junior Retno Basahan combined for 20 second-half points by themselves on Saturday to help the Tide come back from a 15-point deficit as they shocked Texas A&M on the Aggies' home floor. Alabama won the game 61-60 to take some momentum into the SEC tournament, which starts on Wednesday tomorrow. But Alabama will be playing the Florida Gators on Thursday. Now, here's the deal with Florida. This is probably the worst team Billy Donovan has ever had in Gainesville. But the bad news is, that's the good news. The bad news is Anthony Grant is 0-9 against Florida. He's never beaten Donovan. And if the Tide does win on Thursday in the second round, they'll face top-ranked and undefeated Kentucky. But you know what? They hope they get the opportunity. First, before we talk specifically about the tournament, Rodney mentioned Levi Randolph. He was named the Men's Basketball SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year and second-team All-Conference. What a year he has had. But let's talk about this Alabama-Florida matchup. The Tide had a chance here at home to knock off the Gators. They lost a 2-point game to Florida. You know, if nothing else, Alabama's due, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think this is a good matchup for Alabama. I think, as you mentioned, Gary, I think they're due. They, you know, played pretty well, I guess, in the first game, and you know, maybe this is the time that Anthony Grant gets that win.
Well, you know, he doesn't talk about it. He's good friends with Billy Donovan, but it's got to be eating at him that he's never beaten his mentor. But he says, Grant said it today, that they like the matchup and think they'll have an opportunity to win the game on Thursday against the Gators.
We're looking forward to our matchup with Florida. Haven't played them only once this season. The last time we played them came down to the really last possession of the game. Thought you know, we had opportunities in the game, so I think our guys were able to learn from that, and we look forward to the challenge of facing them in our first game on Thursday.
Indeed, we'll find out what happens on Thursday at noon in Music City. The winner, as we mentioned, will face Kentucky, who's already 31-0. And, you know, can anybody beat the Wildcats? We'll find out. That'll be a tough one for either one of those teams, but we, of course, hope that the Alabama is the one that gets the matchup against the big Kentucky Wildcats. All right, Alabama's gymnastics team is hoping to be a tough outcome championship time. That's partially why they held the Elevate the stage meet on Sunday at the BJCC. Alabama and Auburn competed at the Legacy Arena in Birmingham at the BJCC in a meet designed to prepare both teams for the elevated floor, which more closely compares to the way things are at regionals and nationals. The Tide squeaked out a close win against the Tigers, 112 in a row now and counting against Auburn, but it wasn't easy. Coach Dana Duckworth, though, says either way, she believes the match helped the Tide as it gets ready for the postseason.
You couldn't ask for a better experience to basically know exactly what you need to do to be successful on podium. Oklahoma's going to be a battle and a fight. It's going to be a great opportunity to be on the floor with the #1 team in the country and battle it out. So I think it's an honor to be able to have that, but we're going to have to be really good on Friday night.
2 wins for Alabama last week, as before they beat Auburn on Sunday in Birmingham, they had defeated Missouri on Friday night in Columbia, Missouri. Then Coach Duckworth was back Saturday morning running the half marathon. Ronnie, what about that?
Dedicated.
She is a go-getter. Now, Alabama has a huge test. You heard Coach mention it. This Friday night, top-ranked Oklahoma comes to Tuscaloosa at Coleman Coliseum in the final meet of the regular season. Then it's off to the SEC Championships in Duluth, Georgia. We've got much more coming up on Tider Insider TV, including up next, we'll get caught up on a historic weekend of Alabama softball. And we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. 205-348-WVUA is the number. That's 205-348-9882. Phone lines are open right now, so call in. Or you can email us, or, of course, reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag TiderInsiderTV. We're back with more TITV right after this. Desk out there. Alabama's 4th-ranked softball team didn't give up a single run to the Ole Miss Rebels in 3 games this past weekend. That's domination. In fact, sophomore Sydney Littlejohn became the program's first ever pitcher to throw 2 perfect games in her career. She's had them both this season. She struck out 6 on her way to a 10-0 perfect game win in 5 innings over the Rebels on Sunday. Now here's a snapshot of the week that was and the week ahead for Alabama. You see the overall record off to a great start in SEC play. Was scheduled to play UAB tonight, and it got rained out because of all the rain in the area. But they have a huge series this Sunday at Georgia, coming off that 3-game sweep at Ole Miss, where Georgia ranked 8th in the country, Alabama number 5. So that should be a really, really good matchup in Athens this weekend. Hey, phone lines are open, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. First up tonight is Jean in Tuscaloosa. Jean, how are you? You're on the program.
Great. How are you doing?
Very well.
My question is, Alabama women's basketball, what do we need to do to achieve better results for the upcoming year? And what do we have as far as any new recruits signed or to be signed?
Yes, ma'am. Well, you mentioned it. Recruiting is the key. I mean, Christy Curry, Rodney, we've talked about it on the program before. She's got a track record. She won big at Purdue. She had really good teams out at Texas Tech. She knows what she's doing. She knows how to build a program. It's going to take time in this conference. You got a lot of teams you got to try to get, jump to get to the top. But got a really good recruiting class ranked coming in for next year, a top 25 recruiting class. She's recruited well since she got here. So that's the key. I think she knows what she's doing. It's just getting they've got some good players, but more of them, Gene. And I think as soon as that happens, you're going to see the win total go up. And remember, last year they went 7-9 in the SEC, which was a little bit of a surprise. Took a step back this year, but I think next year and in years to come, you're going to see Alabama women's basketball on the move.
Yeah, it's good. Good positive thing there. summary of it, Gary.
Yeah,
and I think you mentioned it, recruiting. I mean, you know, you've got to get the top talent in here to compete with the teams that are really the elite teams in the conference. And I think, you know, with her reputation, Coach Curry, she's going to do an outstanding job in that regard.
Phone lines are open. It's a rare chance to get in. Usually they're packed, and you can't get through. 205-348-9882 right now. If you want to call in, we'll get you on the air. All right, email in the meantime, Rodney, and this was from John in Northport. Dakota Slaughter has been playing well lately. Why hasn't Grant used him more this year? Well, John, you know, I'm not on the coaching staff, so I can't answer that for sure. But I will tell you, he is a former walk-on, and you're right, he has played very well. I agree with you. He has stepped up when his number was called, and he is on scholarship now. But he was not a recruited player. There were a lot of guys ahead of him that obviously they evaluated in practice to be better than Dakota Slaughter. I do really, really have a lot of admiration for the guy for hanging in there, Rodney, and then when his number was called, making plays. But I can't second guess in terms of why he didn't play more early in the year. But do give him a lot of credit for when he has gotten an opportunity, you know, to pick it up. They got Tarrant out, they got Hell out, and Dakota Slaughter as a senior has made a name for himself. And maybe he'll help him going forward.
Yeah. And he's a good kid, Gary.
Yeah,
I think, you know, he's the kind of kid you want in your program. You know, and he certainly hasn't complained about not having an opportunity. And, you know, when his opportunity came available, he's produced.
Yeah, and you got to like that. And you got to admire these guys that to walk on and earn a scholarship. Hey, we got some phone callers holding, so go ahead and hold. We're going to get you hooked up. And when we return, we'll catch up on the Crimson Tide baseball team as they start SEC play this week. And as I mentioned, more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information there is on your screen if you want to get through. We'd love for you to call in, even though we've got some callers that are holding. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider Television will return after this timeout. A sweep would have been preferred, but still 2 out of 3 not bad for the Alabama baseball team this past weekend down in Mobile at Hank Aaron Stadium as Mitch Gaspard's crew took 2 of 3 from Lipscomb, using 3 pitchers in Sunday's finale to throw a 3-hit shutout. So some momentum as they get ready for conference play. The Tide improving its record to 9-6. They were scheduled to play a doubleheader in Hoover today against Alabama A&M at the Met, but again, weather taking its toll on that one as well. They'll open up SEC play on Friday in a tough venue, maybe as tough a venue as there is over there in Starkville. In that left field lounge, they're going to be loud and they are going to be proud. And Mississippi State has a good team, but we'll see what Alabama's got too as they go over to take on the Bulldogs there at Duty Noble Stadium in Starkville, Mississippi. Right now, let's go back to the phone lines. Johnny's been holding over there in East Alabama in Oxford. Hey, Johnny, how are you?
Fine. How are you doing? It's good to hear y'all. Y'all always do such a good job on the show.
Thank you, ma'am.
My question is, we always enjoyed Tom Roberts so much at the head coach show and the different things that he called and did. Do y'all know yet who is going to take his place? You
know, with a guy like Tom, Johnny, as you know, because you talk about how good he is, it kind of takes a village.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure one man can replace Tom Roberts, the longtime director of broadcasting for the Crimson Tide Sports Network. They're going to kind of divvy up his duties a little bit. Eli Gold, the voice of the Crimson Tide, will host the Nick Saban Show. Chris Stewart, the voice of the basketball and baseball Tide, will host the Hey Coach program. They'll have some other people that do some things as far as what's going to happen in pregame and post-game radio. I'm not sure, but that's some information for you, and it's going to take several different people. Tom did a great job running for a long time.
And a great guy.
Certainly. Yeah, great guy. We wish him well in his retirement. I understand he's already traveling some and having a big time. Thanks for the phone call from there in Oxford, Johnny. Let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk to Martha. Martha, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I understand that Alabama has a water ski team. What can you tell us about it?
I can't tell you too much. It's a club team, which means that it's not a sanctioned sport as far as university in terms of scholarships and NCAA. It's one of many club sports here that participate. I know in the past, and right now, I'm being honest with you, I don't know too much about the current team, but I know in the past they've had some really good teams. They've hosted some big tournaments, and I'll try to find out a little more for you, but that's really about all I can tell you. But it's one of a number of club sports that participate and compete here at the University of Alabama. All right, we got another phone call. Who'd you say that was, BJ? Alan. Let's talk with Alan here on TI-TV. Alan, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. How y'all doing, Rodney?
Doing well.
I want to ask, do y'all think Kenyon Drake's going to go through spring practice, or we see him at the A-Day game, or he'll be ready just for the fall? I enjoyed the show.
Thank you, Alan. You know, I really don't know what his status is. Coach Saban hasn't come out with any sort of a statement in terms of whether he'll participate in spring. My guess, Alan, is that he probably wouldn't, or certainly be limited to what he could do. You wouldn't want him to get hit in any way, I don't think, at this point. So, you know, my guess, just to answer your question, is I wouldn't think he's going to participate much in
All
spring.
right, thanks for the phone calls. We're going to get one more email in before we have to take a time out. And this one is from Billy in Hoover. Is it crazy to believe that J.K. Scott could be Alabama's MVP? Billy, I don't think it's crazy at all. I mean, when you've got a special punter, a game changer like this, they don't come around that often. And they got a lot of good football players on this team, but I think there is potential, whether he was actually named MVP or the MVP in the minds of a lot of people. This guy is a game changer.
Listen, there's been guys, Gary, that you've seen play for Alabama. David Palmer, Sean Alexander, Amari Cooper, guys that you thought anytime they had the ball in their hands, they could make something positive happen, great happen. Anytime this guy is back there, he is an unbelievable weapon on the same level with those guys in terms of what he does. I mean, you know, the best, probably the best I've seen, to be honest with you.
He's good. He is good. Bringing back some memories of Ray Guy at Southern Mississippi. All right, thanks for the phone calls. If you didn't get through this week, you can try again next week. It's a beautiful evening, even with some clouds and some rain. Still a nice night in Tuscaloosa. Daylight saving time has kicked in. We'll be back to tell you about another national championship trophy coming back to Tuscaloosa right after this. I don't like to throw around the D word too often, Rodney, but you know Alabama women's wheelchair basketball? Yeah, they're building a dynasty. They won their 4th national championship in the last 7 years up in Missouri over the weekend. They wrapped up the year with a 26-3 record, and we spoke with the director of Alabama's Adapted Athletics on Sunday night on our Sports Sunday program about the accomplishment of this group of ladies.
The whole university has something to be proud of in the women's wheelchair basketball team, and it's been a great season. We had a senior-laden team with 5 seniors, and I think the thing that I thought about the most the night before that championship was just how much I wanted it for that group.
And the men also made it to the national championships in Columbia, Missouri. Came up a little bit short, but they've got 1 national championship to their credit as well. Rodney.
You haven't mentioned my new title.
Well, I didn't think I'd have to. I figured you would.
Look at that. You like that?
I like it.
That's from Stitch Perfect by Vanessa. Go on Facebook, Stitch Perfect by Vanessa, and look at some of her work.
All right, that's going to do it for the program. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening, everybody.